Hey gumshoes, as usual, I'm just going to give this a minute. If there are any audio issues, mods, please call me. If there are any audio issues, sounds good. So, okay, we are just going to jump back in where we left off, which was the end of June. Oh, by the way, first I want to say I heard from my mods last week that the chat went much smoother. So thank you for that. I didn't get to see the chat because something private popped up on my screen during the live, and I just had to kind of put it out of my mind and then edit the video. And even if you shave seconds off the video, which is what I did, I took 3 seconds off the video, you lose the chat transcript. So anyway, okay, all right, June 28th. So Charles and Adam had a text exchange. This is where they begin to make plans for Adam to come out to Phoenix. I'm going to go ahead and open this. For some reason, it's just with the text exchanges between Charles and Adam, they reversed the order. So I put this big obnoxious arrow, one as my own visual cue, but then also, excuse me, if you ever happen to go into the timeline and click through, you'll have that visual cue that you start at the bottom and work your way up. So this is Charles, and he told Adam, I think I have enough points in Southwest for you to fly round trip to Phoenix if and when you feel the need to go. Adam immediately jumps into his plan. And I talked about this in the first video I did with A Murderous Heart, how, you know, the friend or foe video, I kind of lean more toward Adam being on the foe side. I think he was working both sides, and I'm not going to go too far into that. But one of the red flags for me early on is that Charles was using his points to fly Adam out to get his assistants, to have the bishop and possibly the stake president, Holmes, get together, confront Lori, and that was really his main objective. And Adam took the reins and basically turned the trip into an opportunity for him to get together with family. So anyway, so Adam jumps in. I told my mom, I want to have a family meeting, have Lori explain all the things she has said. She needs to be accountable. Charles claps back with, I will not be there. This is on her. I tried getting her help, and the entire family, except for you, put a scarlet letter on my forehead. The truth is, I put her back in Arizona so she could do her evil somewhere else. The only thing she's doing right is with JJ. He doesn't understand why his mommy left for 72 days, but she did, and she blames it all on me. Good luck, Adam, and my prayers are with all of you. I don't think it'll work because she knows she's special. And then Charles also texted him, and typically Holmes and Gabe Bonilla fit in here, but Holmes didn't fit in here, but they only ever talked about having Holmes and Gabe Bonilla join them, so I suspect they either, like Charles may have misspelled Holmes or put an extra space in there or something. Something's a little wonky, but typically it's Holmes and Gabe Bonilla. She's on a very dangerous path and thinks she's not. She truly thinks she's on a special mission, on her 5th probation from Heavenly Father himself. Let me know if you want to use the points. I mentioned this last time, but in Melanie Gibbs' interview with Chandler, so this was in August 2020, she actually explained Charles' rating system, and this 5th probation lines up with Lori's rating. She was like I think a 4.3L, something like that, 4.2, 4.3L. And according to Melanie, the The first probation refers to the, I'm not sure the term is like premortal, something like that. And then your, it's not your first probation, but like that's the one number. If you were to rate a 1 point something, that would just refer to your premortal, something like that, life. And then in your first life on Earth or whatever planet you were assigned to, you would start as a 2 point something. So anyone who was rated a 2 point something was, no, is that right? Yeah, they were on their first probation. So actually, no, I take that back. This doesn't line up. So who knows? They may have just kind of changed things as they went. No, yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, we won't get hung up on that. Okay, so that was June 28th. Also on June 28th, in an argument with Charles, Lori refers to caring for their son JJ as babysitting. Now, I thought that this was significant. I'm going to open this up. I'm not going to read their entire exchange, but they're like back and forth. One thing I will note, I thought it was interesting that this was the only time I think meaning Charles, ever used the name Ned. So he had told Gilbert police that she referred to him as Nick Schneider, and I actually wondered if she actually called him Nick Schneider instead of Ned Schneider, because Ned was supposedly a childhood friend of his who died in, I think, 1997. And so if she had called him Ned Schneider, and Ned Schneider really was a childhood friend, I think that would have tipped Charles off, and even more so than he already was. But I wonder if she slipped and just referred to him as Ned, because I'm pretty sure this is the only time he ever uses Ned. Now, he doesn't say Schneider, so I wonder if she just slipped and called him Ned. We don't know. But I thought that was interesting. So in their back and forth, Charles said, all based on lies. First ours, now Brandon and Mel. Don't forget, you screwed up, something redacted as well. Whose life are you trying to destroy next? And then Lori said, wow, you make me out to be pretty powerful to do all that, ? What exactly would my motivation be? ... More babysitting time. And so that just really stood out to me as an indicator that whatever bond she had with JJ at one point, it had clearly at this point had already been severed. And I've already said before, I absolutely do not believe Melani Gibb when she says that Lori had identified JJ as a zombie the day before she came out, and she didn't find out until she flew out to Rexburg. I just don't believe that, because according to the affidavit of probable cause coming out of Idaho, they have evidence that Lori and company were planning on harming Tammy, Tylee, and JJ as early as October 2018. Even Zulema had said, I talked about this in another live, that she actually said to an investigator, and this is her putting her best foot forward, that she knew that JJ wasn't going to be around for very long. So anyway, so she clearly had a very severed tie. Now, when I was there in 2018, my impression was that she was very bonded with JJ at that time. I mean, I think she's probably always been a socio or psychopath, and I think she's a malignant narcissist, and I think she was a very selfish person on many levels, but at least from what I saw, she seemed to be bonded with JJ and attentive, and also very protective of him, like not getting out of the house because he was a runner and things like that. Okay, June 29th, Charles, this was the infamous, well, I should say, this day goes down in infamy because this was the day that Charles discovered the email that Lori had sent to Chad using a fake email from, as if it was from Charles. So he discovers the email Lori Vallow sent to Chad Daybell using a fake email address with Charles' name at 8:39 a.m. Charles emails Lori's brother Adam upon making this discovery. Adam, open this. I'll see if I can zoom in for people on screens. On mobile devices. Adam, open this letter and see what she did. I'm not sure this should be of the relationship with her and Chad Daybell, but they are up to something. She created an email alias for me, as I've never set this one up. She sent this yesterday, and I guess she forgot all her emails are on the computer at my house. And side note, I think that happened when Lori came out there and met and lived with him for 2 months in Houston. I asked her to explain it, and she started blaming you, Brandon, and me for perpetrating a scheme against her. I mentioned this in another live. It's always been kind of a curiosity to me that she was so paranoid about Brandon, because we found out in the FOIA docs, and I talked about this the last live, or maybe the second to the last live, that Brandon had blocked Charles, or it appears that Brandon was the one who blocked Charles on his phone. He said that Melani did. I already presented a case for why investigators didn't believe that. And I don't think it's very plausible, because he was blocked the day after the big blow up. I think he was blocked from January 31st until after Charles' death. So I think if he had been in contact with Charles, Charles would have said, hey, why haven't you replied to my last 22 text messages? Because Brandon said that's how many text messages there were in the blocked folder. Okay. So I don't think that Brandon was in on any of this. I think Brandon was most likely just trying to save his own marriage, because his own marriage had been unraveling at this time. All right, just more of her paranoia. She will not explain it. I am going to send it to Chad Daybell's wife. Her name is Tammy, and I found her email address on their website. I've got her cell number too. Now, this was interesting that he says he found her email address on their website, because I looked all through Chad's website and I didn't see Tammy's email address. And I went into the Wayback Machine and went back to June 2018, and I still didn't see Tammy's email address. We also know from the FOIA docs that he emailed Tammy at her work, so I don't know how he got that email address. It may have been on Chad's website at some point, but I just thought that was kind of a curious thing, that he would have gotten Tammy's work email address and her cell phone number on Chad's website, because people don't typically publish that. And also his site was very much like his kind of thing, his blog. So I just thought that was curious. Sounds very suspicious to me. What do you think? Whenever she gets caught doing this kind of stuff, she starts blaming everybody else, mostly me, you, and Brandon. Brandon and I are the victims of her craziness. I wish you luck trying to help her. I was the one brave enough to try to get her help in January, and look what happened to me. The whole family put a scarlet letter on me. Maybe now they can see what they're up against. Thanks. Okay. And if you want to see the historical snapshot, I included a link for the nerds among us. Okay, also June 29th, Charles told Adam that he planned to reach out to Tammy about his concerns, and arranges to fly Adam out to Arizona using his Southwest frequent flyer miles. We already talked about this. Is probably just another screenshot. Yes. Okay. Well, actually, I will read this. So Adam said, OMG, we need to get a private investigator to take pics of him and her together. Charles said, not necessary. It's too obvious. I've got her cornered. She knows I know. I'm talking to Chad's wife on Monday. It is unfortunate that Charles kept announcing his next move. It really shows just how much trust he had in Adam. But I think that worked against him, because I think that his attempts to contact Tammy were intercepted. I talked about that in the Who Was the Mole video. I'm talking to Chad's wife on Monday. That should do it. This should be big news in our community. He plays so righteous, and here he is having an affair. She had to be stopped. This will be her third family to destroy. It's up to you, Adam. I'm leaving it to you. I don't know what else to do. And I'm going to zoom in now that I'm away from the text that would be blocked by this thing that I can't get rid of. Okay, Adam, they will deny it. What proof do we have besides the email? Personally, I think this is a fact-finding mission. Charles replies, I don't need any more. Let her deny it. I'm going to the next event and putting it all on flash drives and handing out to 2,000 attendees. I mean, Charles, now keep in mind, he had just found this letter, just knew beyond all shadow of a doubt that, Lori was having an affair. And even though they were separated at that time, it was apparent that they had started this affair before they were separated. Let them make up their own mind and see who's preaching to them about church and how beautiful families are while having an affair. It'll be so much fun. He'll probably sell more books, but not for a reason he likes. I've already contacted his wife. It should be real interesting when I speak to her on Monday. And then Charles texted again. I know it's vacation. I think Adam was in like Arkansas or somewhere. But can you chat for just a moment? Then they pick it back up a few days later. Adam asks, what did Chad Daybell's wife say? Charles replied, nothing. Lori says, and he has a lot of typos. I think this was supposed to be, she's her friend. Lori says, I'm crazy. She also says, I wrote the email. Go figure. She has no limits to what she will say to accomplish her mission, whatever the hell that is. There are a number of things I have her dead to rights on lying about. I have given up. There's nothing I can do. As Summer, your mom and dad won't even acknowledge me. Adam, I'm the only one who loves her enough to try to do something. Look what happened to me. I'm an outcast and I've done nothing wrong. And then he says, Lori says Tammy Daybell is her friend. I think Tammy and her husband are some of the ringleaders. Just look at the emails he writes. They are a bunch of crazies and have made a mockery of our gospel. And I talked about this in the mole video. But I suspect, and we'll see the emails that he sent to Tammy and to Chad, but this was July at this point, end of June, July. So Tammy would have been on summer break. And so I think that by announcing that he was doing these things, not just to Adam, he also told Lori. I think that gave Chad enough time to intercept these emails. Okay. Charles gave Lori an ultimatum, come clean about her relationship with Chad Daybell by the end of the day, or he would contact Tammy and inform her of their relationship. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, this just confirms what I said. Let me see if there's anything. Yeah, this just does the same. Okay. And then... So he gave her to the end of the day, but then soon thereafter texted Tammy. So I think at this point, Charles was already an obsessive kind of guy. And I say that as someone who clearly, as evidenced by this timeline, obviously I have some obsessive tendencies. So I don't say that in a judgmental way, but more of an academic like acknowledgement. And there are certain personality types. I read about my particular personality type with the Myers-Briggs. Under stress, they obsess. And I was like, wow, that is so accurate. But that's how we have this timeline. But so I think at this point, Charles was just kind of out of his mind and obsessing and acting a little bit impulsively, as we are all prone to do when we're upset. So anyway, 9/16, he emailed Tammy to inform her of the affair. Tammy, my name is Charles Vallow. I have some vital and disturbing information regarding your husband and my wife, Lori. This is your work email, so I'll wait to send you the evidence that is very disturbing. You may call or email me from the address where you can receive the information. I apologize to be the one sending this, but something has to be done. I feel it's best if I shed some light on the issue. Regards, Charles Vallow. Just 1 second. Okay. Chandler police suspect Lori may have reached out to Tammy after Charles' death. I personally, I don't find a lot of merit in this, so I'm not sure if this was just like a suspicion someone had or if they actually have evidence of this. Mrs. Charles Vallow reached out to Tammy Daybell to speak with her about the affair. Lori had access to Charles' email accounts, and it is suspected that she could have made additional communication to Tammy under the name of Charles Vallow after his death to cover up the affair. The date of and this is interesting. The date of 10/19/2019 is the date Tammy Daybell's death, in which Chad Daybell and Alex Cox are suspected of committing. And I talked about this in one of the recent lives, but they, at one point in the FOIA docs, it says that they have evidence that Chad was I think it was the initiator, like it was his plan, and Alex played some kind of role. Let me see if he called it, let me see. No, I'll have to find it. I'll put it on the community tab if someone reminds me, if one of my illustrious mods can remind me, and I may have actually already done that, but I just thought that was interesting that it actually said they have evidence. Okay. All right, so that was at 9/16. At 9:32, he emailed Chad to confront him about the affair. He said, Chad, I'm Lori's husband, but I gather you already know this. She sent an email yesterday, supposedly written by me, to KK. That was Karen. Oh, it was KK Walker, 70-something at Yahoo. Inviting you to Arizona next week and to ghostwrite a book I'm supposedly working on. It's preposterous. I happen to... there was no end to the sentence. That's why I included the sick. That just means like it wasn't my grammatical error. I'm copying it as is. I happened to run across it as she left her computer at her Houston home. I am not paying anybody for anything, and I'm not writing a book. Either you or Lori need to tell me what's going on, or this will be exposed for all to see. Regards, Charles Vallow. Then at 9:36, so that was 9:32, at 9:36, he sent a follow-up email. And does your wife know you have several of Lori's dance videos? Explain how that is in any way appropriate. She sent them to you at your request in January. Okay, the next morning at 10:16 a.m., he sent Tammy a follow-up email with a subject line that read, "Your husband and my wife," and then it continued, "are having an affair. Her name is Lori Vallow. I've got definitive proof if you care to see it. Contact me and I'll share it with you. It's devastating, I know, but the truth needs to be shown. Charles Vallow." So I suspect with him telling Adam that that he thought Chad and Tammy were the ringleaders, I suspect that Chad intercepted both of these emails and replied harshly, and then deleted the emails, because when investigators tried to get a copy of Charles' email on Tammy's work server, it had already been deleted, so they didn't even bother drafting the warrant. Okay, same day, Charles communicates with Zac Cox, if my redaction is correct. They talk about Brandon and Melani Boudreau's relationship and how Lori ruined their marriage. And I just open it up just to show the redaction. Charles Vallow sends Lori a series of text messages, including some vague threats. I'm going to read them from here, just because I highlighted some of the things that I do feel like could have been interpreted as threats. And there was one part in the interview that Summer did where, I'm just going to pull this up first, where she talks about having seen these threats. And then when she showed up on the Hidden True Crime, it was live they were doing, and she was interacting with people during the live, or at least it was her name. Excuse me. She downplayed it to Lori just told her that Charles had threatened her. So, yeah, but we'll just listen to this.
I know for a fact that she did not conspire to kill Charles in any way, shape, or form. I spent a lot of time with Lori and Alex leading up to Charles' death, and I know that there was never any kind of discussion like that about it. Charles texted probably 20 or 30 times, ranging from "I swear I'll be nice, please call me," to "Your end is coming soon." So I saw a lot of threatening texts from him. If Alex hadn't been there, I think Lori and Tylee would have been on the news for a very different reason.
Okay, that last part is pure BS in my opinion. But excuse me, I will push back on her saying that she knew for a fact there wasn't a conspiracy to kill Charles, and I make the note, then why did she say, "I will kill him myself if that is the case"? This was a text that she wrote to Lori. Lori responded, "No, I need you safe." And but then the Chandler police report, in a way that only Chandler could do, writes, "There is no indication of who Summer was talking about killing." This was 2 days before Charles Vallow was actually killed. So anyway, and she and her family, just happened to leave that morning that Charles was shot, and which is very much a Cox family thing to do. So anyway, okay, now let's talk about these texts. So 5:01 a.m. Again, these are texts from Charles to Lori. "Be sure to look over your shoulders today. This may be the day. It's coming, that much I promise you." 5:04, "And your boyfriend too." 6:22, "You will reap the destruction you have sown. I'll be there for JJ. Don't worry about that. Have a wonderful day being a hypocrite in church." And then by 8:42, he had softened his language a little bit because she wasn't replying. But he said, Lori, I know you don't much care how I feel, but just imagine this. How could my actions or breaking your heart result in what you've done? You accuse me of infidelity, but it's you who have been having an affair. It just keeps killing me. Maybe that's your goal. Yes. How can you live with yourself destroying our life, Mel and Brandon's, probably Mel and Brendan too, which I thought that was interesting, that Charles had at some point met Brendan, most likely. I know that Brendan said that he met Tylee, and I'm thinking he probably didn't say something very complimentary because what he said about her was redacted. But anyway, now add Chad Daybell family, and you've got a home run. The fact I never caught that. That's like the baseball player in him. The fact you continue to go to the temple after all you've done shocks even me. There really is something wrong with you. I really don't want to do what I have to do, but you have to be exposed for what you really are. You won't even deny it or talk to me as to your reasons. That's what's amazing to me. You could allay some of what's about to happen, but I don't think you will. Lying has become second nature to you. You have been impressive in blaming me for all that's happened. You have destroyed me. I've never been lower in my life. It's you that has done that. Please tell me why. Please. I will slow or minimize what's about to happen. It's you who has caused it. We have a son to raise, but that's all we have in common. I will work with you in his best interest, and we'll be there Monday evening. You owe me an apology for all the false accusations you've made. You know I've been entirely faithful to you since the first day we met. I deserve an apology from you. Please respect that much. Really, really heartbreaking stuff. But I do suspect that Lori used some of the threatening language or aggressive at minimum to rally her family members, because she always plays the role of the femme fatale. She has to have everyone surround her, help protect her. She already had Zulema as a protector, Alex, Chad. Then she needed Melani Boudreau, didn't even want her to go to a wedding during the time that Charles was going to be shot, and everyone else. I mean, she just needed everyone to protect her. So I think that, and I'm not in any way like victim shaming or blaming. We're just talking facts. I'm just trying to tell the victim's stories here. But I do suspect that this is what Lori used to get her family to surround her, including Colby. All right, late June, Lori contacted Life Academy, that's where JJ had gone to school, to let him know the family was back in Gilbert. And it wasn't actually Gilbert. Lori and the kids had moved to Chandler. But anyway, and she enrolled JJ in the school summer program. Sometime in July, Melani Boudreau filed for divorce from Brandon Boudreau. Let me see here. Okay. This was in the first FOIA doc. And V1 refers to, I'm assuming, victim 1. Despite V1's attempts to prove Lori's prophecy was untrue, Melani maintained Lori's conviction and filed for divorce in July 2019. Okay, July 1st, we're really inching our way toward Charles' murder now. Lori created a new iCloud account, which she named Lollytime. Okay, so this started off as just an unredaction. You see here, the data indicated that the iCloud account, Lollytime at iCloud.com, was created on July 1st. And I had a caveat that, unredacting documents is an an exact science, but I have since discovered further indications that this really was the Lollytime account, because here you see July 1st, creation of Lori's new iCloud account, which was identified as Lollytime, but they included a search warrant ID. And anytime I find a search warrant ID, I search all the FOIA docs. So keep in mind this number 2020-00-1780. Well, in source 3, I found that search warrant 001-1780, and it says here Lollytime return. Okay. So she locked down the Lollytime account like right before Charles. I mean, this is less than 2 weeks before Charles was murdered. Okay, also July 1st, the contact Lori Vallow's phone that was saved in Lori Vallow's phone as Bubby is created using the fictitious name Boyd Dial with a P.O. box in Mesa, Arizona. This phone is confirmed to belong to Chad Daybell. Here we see this phone was purchased under the fictitious name of Boyd Dial, who reportedly resided in Mesa, Arizona. The phone was linked to Chad Daybell through contacts in, his iCloud account. And that's the thing that amazes me, that these guys had all of these like burner phones, and then they were doing like, shifty stuff while logged into verified accounts. They were using their credit cards with, these fictitious names, and they just kept like verifying. And then Lori even had an iCloud account for her Lollytime account, and there were contacts that they shared in common. So they were way too unsophisticated to ever consider turning to a life of crime. I mean, if you don't even know how to use an incognito browser, you should probably keep your day job and not turn to crime. Okay, now one thing that I was just curious this week, and I just thought, Boyd Dial. First of all, the name Boyd, it just, having now seen enough names from like LDS folks, it sounded kind of LDS to me. And so I just kind of chased that rabbit down a hole, and I did some searching for a Boyd Dial, and I found that there was a Hal Boyd Dial who was a bishop and stake president, and he lived in Taylorsville, Utah at the time of his death. So here is Mr. Hal Boyd Dial. So I thought, well, wait a minute. So Chad grew up in Provo and then lived in Springville with his, with Tammy and the kids. So, and we don't know where this Hal Dial was living when he was stake president and bishop, but it is pretty close. So I am just curious, like Chad needed a way to remember all of these names. So and another thing that I noted is that he has this pretty solid pattern for like masquerading as church leaders in these fake accounts. So like just one example is he was initially in Lori's, I think it was her Lori for Style account. He was listed as Melani 2, and that made sense because she was still married to Charles and stuff. But I think it was then changed, or it might have been in her Lollytime account. Anyway, one of the other aliases for that account was Bishop Shumway. So so he had this pattern. And so I do wonder, I mean, it's not particularly relevant to the case, but I just thought it was a curiosity. Okay, Also, on July 1st, this goes back to the catfishing thing. In this particular communication, the scammer asked Charles for more money, but he said he had just spent $4.5 million on a business. It says he communicated with her again on July 1st, where she asked for more money again. He said he had just spent $4.5 million on a business where he was and had to wait for it to start generating positive cash flow. He said, I have to be very conservative or Lori will see what I'm doing. That would not be good. So I seriously doubt he was in a position to borrow $4.5 million, but I think at this point, his self-esteem was pretty shattered, and he did think that this scammer was a real person because he did attempt to meet up with her at the Houston airport, and she didn't show up. Okay, so July 1st was the Monday that Charles planned to speak to Tammy about the affair. That conversation never took place, it appears. Okay, now this was very curious to me. So from July 1st to July 9th, JJ was sick and was vomiting. So I just kind of pieced this together because this was in a police report and they kind of are all over the place in the police report. So I didn't want to have like this mile-long screenshot. But it says on July 1st, Lori sent Charles a text asking what his plan was with JJ and if he was planning on flying with him on July 2nd. Charles responded, I'm going to Idaho first to meet with Vallow-Daybell. Lori responded, she won't see you. She is my friend. She won't listen to you. Go ahead. You are ridiculous. Are you coming to JJ for the 4th or not? The remaining text messages between Charles and Lori on July 1st seemed to be civil and focused on JJ, who was reportedly with Lori in Arizona. Lori informed Charles that JJ was ill and had been vomiting. Charles and Lori talked about health insurance and taking JJ to the doctor. Between July 2nd and July 9th, Charles and Lori seemed to be civil with each other, and Charles would check on JJ each day to see how he was feeling. They would also talk about finances and paying bills. So this isn't a verification that JJ was sick and vomiting that entire time, but for them to note that Charles was checking in to see how he was doing during that period of time, it indicates that JJ was sick for a protracted period of time. And given Lori's obsession with malachite and some of these suspicious deaths, and also knowing that she ultimately had at bare minimum no qualms with JJ being murdered, never called in a welfare check or expressed any kind of concern, I believe that they will pretty easily be able to convince a jury that she was a co-conspirator with that. But I do wonder if Lori was poisoning JJ. We do know from the Hawaii friends that Lori had talked about poisoning Charles, that she was putting stuff in his smoothies. And so one of the friends said that another friend would have more details. Then that friend was like backpedaling and was like, I think it was just Xanax because he was such an uptight guy. But if you've ever taken Xanax, and I have for sleep, it is extremely bitter. It is not something you would be able to grind up and put in a smoothie without it being detected. But and she also had told Zulema that he was getting weaker each day. So I do suspect that there had been multiple attempts on these different victims' lives. Okay, also July 2nd, Lori also saves the Bubby number to her burner phone that used the Lollytime iCloud account. So I just think it's pretty sketch that, leading up to Charles' murder, here you see, it's probably more closely tied with Charles having discovered the email that Lori sent to Chad as Charles, but they both fire up these burner phones. Okay. I also thought it was interesting that she would save Chad's number as Bubby, because I remember visiting there like back in 2004, and that was a nickname that Lori had for Colby. So it might have just been a term of endearment, but that's just really weird. Okay. Or maybe she thought that would mask the number. Who knows? I can open these up. I think these are just, this is just more of the same. Okay. We already talked about this, that Charles told Adam he believed that Chad and Tammy Daybell are ringleaders of the cult. Obviously, Tammy was not a ringleader of this cult. July 2nd, Zulema tells Lori in a text she was given instructions to, and this I'm just actually going to open up. It's just absolutely bizarre. Okay, so at this would be 7:52, Zulema texted Lori, also, I was given instructions today to rip, tear, or burn the aura of Hiplos to let the body energy out so he can't re-enter. So weird. She also texted Chad right after that, Chad texted her right after that. I am very happy to find out these estates. You and Lolo have been doing amazing work. Mother Earth is so grateful to you both. Thank you as well for your help with Hiplos. He is so very close. How this guy is not charged as a co-conspirator is absolutely beyond me. Okay. So, July 2nd. So, let's see here. All right, so Charles sent Adam Cox the following text message, or at least I believe that was Adam Cox. Hey, dude, I'm beyond perplexed, but not surprised. We just got new health insurance for our family. Lori handled it and did it with Bright Health Care of Arizona. She got coverage for me, JJ, and Tylee, but not her because she doesn't need it. You can guess why. Wow, I'll call her tomorrow and add her. This is crazy crap. I tried to get her to understand the exposure she opens, I think that was supposed to be us, to if anything were to happen to her, but all to no avail. So, I mean, this is a pretty alarming development that Lori did seem to believe that she was actually a translated being. Okay, Charles warned Adam not to talk to his family about their concerns about Lori and instead include their stake president homes. Okay. The remaining text messages between Charles and Lori, we already talked about that. Adam responded, something dramatic has to happen to her so she can see that she is not Superwoman. Charles then responded, it won't work to present facts. She knows better because she personally talks to Jesus. She will not listen to anyone. That's why when you go, you need Holmes there too. He was the stake president. She has to deny all these things. I don't think she will. She'll see it as an attack on her personally. That's when she will be in trouble. The only thing she'll understand that she is not what she believes. She will blame everyone else for her problems as she does me and I think maybe that was supposed to be, and now Brandon. We are evil. She is a god. She truly believes it. There is a disconnect. The biggest problem is that she's got a whole group of people that believe they are special. I could not agree more with his assessment. And I've talked before about how absolutely codependent Lori was. I call it her like emotional echolocation. She has to have that constant feedback to move forward with anything. And she got it from this group of friends. Okay, so they think they're special, chosen, know what's going to happen. If you go by yourself, it will come down to the whole family supporting her or you. That will not end well. I mean, these words could not have been more true. Charles absolutely did not want Adam to go to his family by himself. And I understand where he's coming from, because it's like, well, what do you think you're going to be able to accomplish by talking to them without disclosing everything that we've talked about? Charles' whole plan was to set up this intervention and to have her excommunicated. Okay, the stake president can end it all by taking away her recommend until she repents. When she doesn't repent, she will end up like Al, excommunication. Obviously, Adam did not care what Charles wanted. Okay, now I also think it's important to note that not only did he disregard Charles' wishes, he had promised Charles that he would do two things. One was when he had this conversation with Lori, so he was already resolute that he was going to have this, a one-on-one confrontation with Lori, and then also a meeting with the family. He promised Charles that he would, one, record their conversation, and that two, he would meet up with Holmes. He said they typically played basketball on Friday nights, or they had when Adam lived there. So he was going to meet up with Holmes and ask him to come help them to intervene. So unfortunately, it appears that Charles had left the Holmes component up to Adam. But then you see in this screenshot here, and feel free to go back, pause the video. I always include jump links in the description so that you can skip to any topic. But it says, Adam said he was going to speak with the stake president, that was Holmes, but he was not able to. Adam said he was going to record Lori, but was not able to. So the two things he actually, assured Charles he would do, he just told Detective Moffat he wasn't able to. Okay. We'll talk more about the what happened on the day Charles was shot. But he did tell his wife, according to his wife at that time, Nicole, they're no longer together, that he said, I think Lori and Alex did something to Charles. Okay. All right, July 2nd, we're still on July 2nd. Lori and Zulema meet at the temple. July 4th, Charles texted Lori to tell her that she could stay in a hotel if she didn't want to be in the house with him. He said, if you want to get a hotel for next Thursday when I'm there, you can take a break and go. I'd like to stay and wake up with JJ on Thursday. I won't get there till about 9. Let me know. You can book it. And initially he was insisting on being able to stay in the house that he was paying for. He ended up relenting on that. July 6th, April Raymond claimed this was the date of her last communication with Lori. So the week before Charles was shot. Not quite a week before. July 8th, Charles emails Adam the forged email Lori allegedly sent Chad as Charles, as well as a heated exchange between Lori and Charles where she said she was ruining families, and she called him Joe Ryan. So I'm not going to go over all of that in the interest of kind of moving the story along, but I will point out, and this has been covered pretty widely across like different YouTube channels. But again, I link to everything in the timeline. So any of these screenshots that you care to read, you can just open them from the timeline. But so they were, okay, this is where Charles said, I'm staying at my house. And Lori said, no, you are not. Jason, and Mal just happens to fit there, will make sure, and I think that was supposed to be of that. I'll just zoom in for mobile users. Get a hotel or stay with Brandon, your best friend. Charles, no. Is he on the lease? I'll have the police there if he tries. It's my house. And you go stay with your boyfriend and his hotel since he's making so much money writing a book for me. Then Lori replies, okay, Joe Ryan, he is the police. Speaking of Jason Mal, he is retired. He is not on the lease. Even he can't do anything. Don't know what she meant by that. But I've said this before in another live, at least one. This, I think, had to be a shot across the bow for Charles. I do strongly suspect that Joe was murdered, and if Charles knew any of those details, and he certainly would have been apprised of the plan to murder Joe back in 2007, and there wouldn't have been any love lost. Both he and Joe sent each other, like very heated emails. So, but she was basically letting Charles know, hey, you know what? You're Joe Ryan 2.0. And since this happened so, like just days before, Charles drove up to the house and saw Alex Cox there, that had to flash back to him. But anyway, I suspect this caused him a great deal of anxiety. Okay, July 8th, Charles asked Lori to book a hotel room for him, which she did using hotels.com. The reservation was made for the True by Hilton in Gilbert for the 10th through the 13th. I actually kind of saved off a PDF with all of the details about the hotel. So you can see that he was planning on leaving the 13th, and no one had canceled the reservation. So even though the police went to the hotel, excuse me, I think the day of, or maybe the day after he was murdered, anyway, I'm getting distracted. Okay. July 8th, Lori texted Zulema and asked her to call up an earthquake in Valencia, California. So I'm just going to pull this up. Okay. Oh, there is one thing I want to note here, so I'm going to read this. Zulema went on to clarify that Charles no longer existed. His spirit was removed from his body and replaced by Garrett, Ned, and now Hiplos. It was in the order of Ned, Garrett, and then Hiplos. In order to protect his mortal body from being possessed by another evil spirit, this spiritual fire had to be placed around him. Now, this is the only reference I ever remember seeing toward this spiritual fire. And so I just thought that this was really interesting. This group, especially Melani Gibbs, seemed to have a fixation on fire. And, it just even occurred to me as I was like updating the note for this, that but like Melani had a book called Feel the Fire, and then when Melani and Lori started the podcast, the title of the podcast was also Feel the Fire, and then they published a podcast just 2 days, or the day before Tylee was last seen. So they published a podcast on September 7th titled What is a Baptism of Fire? And this would just be hours before Tylee's body would be burned, dismembered and then burned repeatedly. So these are pretty creepy connections, but I just think that, or I suspect that Lori picked up on whatever obsessions, each of these group members had, and just wove them into the fabric of this whole like murder spree that they were on. So anyway, okay. Detective Hermosillo then read the text message from July 8th in which Lori asked Zulema to call up an earthquake in Valencia, California. Lori told her that Hiplos was traveling in Valencia at this time. Lori also said that sadly, Hiplos was okay, but they were going to continue to work on him. Zulema stated that according to Chad, he told her she was placed here on this earth to control the elements. Chad would tell Zulema to practice controlling certain things in regards to the elements. She would then pray, and Chad and Lori would tell her how successful she was afterwards. She added that Lori would also tell her about her capabilities. They even informed her she was able to call up rainstorms and was able to part rainstorms. Zulema indicated that she would simply say a prayer to ask for these things to happen, and Lori and Chad would validate her abilities. This is pure bunk. It is true that, I think it is true that Chad told her that she had the ability to control the elements, although I'm not exactly sure if that originated with him. But you see again and again in her text messages that Zulema was excitedly telling them that she had, when she was in Colombia, there was some kind of natural disaster and she took credit for it. So she was kind of like ISIS, just like taking credit for these natural disasters. And she was letting them know. So now, in what is to be expected from these group members now, they're going to clownish lengths to distance themselves from these crimes. But at the time, she was all in and wasn't just this, wilted daisy waiting for her next assignment. In fact, she borderline harassed them with, questions and informing them of different, feats that she had accomplished. Okay. July 8th, the Zulema sent Lori a bizarre text message that suggests after Hiplos is dead, there would be a domino effect, and asked what they need to get ready for that. Let me pull that up. Okay, Lori sent Zulema an SMS message at 1:22 p.m. we already went through that. Okay, but she did say, but we had this, sadly, he is still okay. I actually need to go back and update this because sometimes in one FOIA doc or in one police report, they'll have part of a text message, but then more of it will be redacted or just not included, and then they'll include more later on. But she said, but we are going to continue to work on him. The elements will obey eventually. Okay, Zulema responded to Lori at 6:19 p.m. That read, I had to get home so I could go in my portal out there. I asked, if we do that, the ramifications of the things to come, we are not ready for at this time. For what I understand is that when Hiplos is gone, things are going to be a domino effect, one after another, in case you don't know what a domino effect is. What do we need to do to be ready for all that is coming? And I think this is absolutely an indicator that Zulema knew there would be more deaths. And she was all in. She was ready for it. And, was definitely inserting herself we are not ready for at this time. And then, What do we need to do to be ready for all that is coming? Okay, Melanie and Brandon begin divorce proceedings, and Melanie continues to pay for the life insurance on Brandon despite seeking a divorce. It says here, despite attempts to reconcile, Brandon and Melanie began their divorce proceedings on July 8th. Melanie remained the sole beneficiary on Brandon's life insurance policy and continued to pay for it despite their divorce. Okay, so on July 9th, and we're going to stop at July 9th because July 10th is where things, we'll stop at July 10th. Okay, so July 9th, there were so many different events. What I decided to do was with any event that had a timestamp, I included them in this in this particular update or line item, just to kind of, show everything that happened chronologically, and also to demonstrate just the velocity. You really see things start to pick up at this point. I think you'll also see just how absolutely manic Lori was at this point. Okay. So 1:49 p.m., Lori invited Alex over to her house and sent him her address. We have this gap, and then at 6:18, Melanie texted Lori and asked her, "Are you home? I want to come over." So now Melanie, just like Zulema, is, going to great lengths to try to distance herself from all of this. But you see, 2 days before Charles was murdered, she actually, we'll get to it, but she was sitting outside Lori's house after Lori blew her off. So 6:18, she texted, "Are you home? I want to come over." 6:20, Lori responds, "All my family and the kids are here, so it's chaos right now." I've questioned this addition of the kids because it's not clear if Melanie Boudreau was over, because Lori was texting her pretty early on in the evening. And so it's hard to know at this point who is all of her family. Was this Summer, Alex? Who did this include? We know that Adam wasn't in town yet, but her addition of "and the kids" really makes me question, I'll just go with question, if Colby and or Kelsey weren't there as well. But Lori replied a minute later, "Okay, let me know when." 7:06, Chad calls Lori, and they talked until 8:14. Now, the police report noted prior to this phone call, there were numerous SMS messages between Lori and Chad. However, none of the messages appeared in the iCloud records. Record of these messages are only seen in the phone records. Based on the messages reviewed, it was likely that the urgent news Lori received was from Chad. Okay, so I note here, I kind of take issue with the police report's assumption that the urgent news came from Chad, because Lori was on the phone with Chad when it notes that the urgent news came in. So at 7:21, so this was 15 minutes into her phone call with Chad, Lori found out about the intervention from Janice and Summer, not Chad. And so I believe that Lori and Summer most likely found out from Adam. Big question marks, because Chad also had the emails from, the emails to Tammy didn't say anything about the intervention. So anyway, And I've already talked about this, that Detective Moffat warned Kay's brother, I think his name was Bobby, not to trust Adam. I just created a transcript of it just from the text messages that I've seen of his, or and it's hard to understand, of Lori and Al. I don't know that Adam's very trustworthy. That's one of the reasons I called Kay 3 times last night, because I want her to just be very guarded with what she tells him. More garbled talking, because Adam and your brother were talking that morning and the day before, and kind of how she had fallen off the deep end. Again, more stuff that it was like a word or two that I couldn't understand and stuff like that. And they were talking that day, but he might have called Lori afterwards talking about Adam. So I don't know. And Adam told Kay, I've been trying to reach out to the detective. I've been trying to reach out to the detective. That he actually said that twice. Well, I have not received a phone call, an email, a message to call him, or anything. So I just don't know he's very trustworthy or where he lies in this. Now, I've always thought it was very curious that he said he might have called Lori afterwards. I mean, there would have had to have been something that made him think that. And they had Lori's, did they have Lori's phone records? Yeah, they had Lori's phone records at that time. So so who knows, like Lori may have mentioned it to one of these other group members, may have texted it to, Zulema or Chad or whatever. But anyway, okay. All right, so that was at 7:06. 7:21. Lori, this is the point where Lori learned of Charles and Adam's intervention plans. The indictment states she found this out from her mother, Zac Cox, and Summer Shiflett. Then she reached out to Alex Cox, Melani Boudreau, and Summer Shiflett to warn them of this intervention. So it's kind of hard to know with some of this stuff how much of this is just like bad writing on the Chandler and Gilbert police department's part, because like the affidavit of probable cause that came out of Idaho, I mean, it was so crisp and clear. All of the paragraphs were enumerated, I should say, and it was very, very easy to follow, whereas these guys are kind of all over the place. So, all right, but you see here, Lori found out about the potential intervention on July 9th. And then she reached out to Alex Cox, Melani Boudreau, and Summer Shiflett to warn them of the elaborate plan that Adam and Charles had. But, it's still weird. Like, well, if she found out from about the intervention through her mom and Summer, then I don't think she would have been reaching out to Summer to warn them of the elaborate plan. I think they were discussing a game plan. Let's see what this holds. Yeah. Okay, just more of the same. Okay, 7:21. Lori texted Melani, need to talk to you ASAP. Just a second, I need to get a drink. A minute later, Melani calls Lori. 7:22. Lori texts Melani, I'll call you in 5, finding out what to do. And keep in mind, she's still talking to Chad, and talked to Chad until, I think, what was it? Like 8:14. $7:23. Melani texts Lori, are they there still? 7:43. Chad searches on Google for when you surprise someone with accusations. That's weird. That's just really, really weird. But 7:50, Charles texts Lori, did our boy do okay today? So I think this was the last time he texted Lori, checking in on JJ because of him being sick. 7:55, Melanie Gibb texts Lori again. I'm waiting at your house, so let me know when you are ready for me to come in. This is, Melanie like hardly being involved in any of this at all. I also thought it was interesting that in her interview with Chandler, now they might have been doing some of this to help her to relax and to come across as the good guys, but they were asking her who was part of this group, and one of the detectives told her, well, we know that you were like on the outskirts of this group. And I listened to that and I was like, yeah, false. She called Lori mom. Like, you can't get any more in the group than calling one of the group leaders mom. Okay, 8 p.m. Lori texts Melanie, you can't go tomorrow. It's a setup for both of us. Still on the phone finding out the details. 8:01. She texts her again. They have an elaborate plan. I'll call you soon. 8:03. Lori texts Melanie, I'm in the backyard on an important call. You can come back here quietly. Question mark. Okay. So just noting, Lori was still on the phone with Chad, and this was the night that Melanie spent the night. 8:05, Melanie Boudreau sent Lori a text, I could take all the babies with and drive and take our stuff. So Melanie's not capturing the reason why why Lori was saying she couldn't go. I mean, even for Lori to tell her you can't go, like we've already talked about how Lori kind of assumed this motherly role with Melanie, but appears to have been pretty inconsistent because Brandon said that Melanie and Lori started to hang out again in October 2018. So it sounds like they had a rift. It might have been over the money that Lori and Charles owed Brandon and Melanie for the juice truck. But even if Lori had been her mother, I mean, it's just extremely inappropriate. Here, Melanie is this wife and mother of 4 children. And so to have someone just telling her you can't go is a very weird power dynamic between them. I think Lori was absolutely exploiting that vacuum in Melanie's heart from not having had a mom for so many years. Okay. Lori added, so she texted her again, is coming to a head. This week will change everything. Melanie responded, probably why I've felt sick about going, even when told to plan to go. So she acquiesces to Lori's plan. 8:15, Lori had just gotten off the phone with Chad and then texted Melanie, call me. And they talk until 8:30. So 8:15 to 8:30, after this call, Melanie and Lori shared SMS messages talking about Brandon Boudreau and his dark spirit. Lori encouraged Melanie to keep, and the name was redacted. This was Melanie and Brandon's daughter, away from Brandon. It was most likely their youngest daughter. 9:03, at least that's my guess. Okay, 9:03, Lori advised Alex of the conflict. She sent him a text that read, so the plot thickens, call me when you can. 9:03, Alex calls Lori and they talk for 3 minutes. 9:03 to 9:50, it says in one of the FOIA docs, between 9:03 p.m. and 9:50 p.m., Lori exchanged individual SMS messages between Chad, Melanie Boudreau, and Alex. The actual messages between Lori and Alex and Lori and Melanie remained on the Lollytime iCloud account. However, there is no visible message content between Lori and Chad on the Lollytime iCloud account during this time frame. SMS messages between Lori and Chad did not appear on the Lollytime account until July 13th, so not until after Charles was murdered. 9:16, Lori sent Melani a text. They are gathering witnesses. It's just like Twilight. They are the vulture. I've never seen Twilight. I've never read the book, but there you go. Lori's just like, okay, what can my sophomoric, wannabe daughter relate to? Okay, I'll use Twilight. All right, 9:39, Charles had not heard from Lori and sent another text with just 4 question marks. 9:50, Lori texts Alex, getting sleepy. I'm going to need you, and this was a typo on her part, I'm going to need you to stay close to me the next couple days. Mel too. She can't go to Utah. They are, obviously this was meant to be planning. They are planning some kind of intervention, but want Mel out of the way, so I'm left alone. I need to come get the stuff at your house tomorrow and secure it. So I'm very curious about what stuff she had at Alex's house that she needed to secure. Lots to do. Thank you for standing by me. It's all coming to a head this week. I will be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you. Oh, yeah, and the police report also noted, in reviewing the text messages between Alex and Lori, there was no mention of Alex spending the night at the house to be able to do fun things with the kids on July 11th. And I believe that they noted that because that was what Alex told police was the reason he spent the night, where Lori told police that he spent the night to protect her. So it was just one of many red flags that police should have caught, and I've already talked about this, they have plenty of probable cause to arrest, in my opinion, both Alex and Lori. All right, 9:56 to 10:52, Alex called Lori again, and they talked for almost an hour. 10:27, Charles texted Lori asking, did you spend $196 at Walmart grocery in Provo on UFCU card yesterday? Okay, so those are all of the events that we know happened on the 9th. We also know that on July 9th, Charles traveled to Valencia. We've already seen that. According to Summer, Lori's sister, Alex texted her to ask if Adam could come stay at her house because he didn't have a bed for him. During the interview, Summer produced her cell phone and shared text messages between her and Alex. Lieutenant Ball read these text messages out loud on recording. On July 9th, 2019, Alex sent Summer a text asking if Alex could stay in her downstairs bedroom because he did not have a bed for him. Summer agreed that Adam or Zac, this particular writer of this part of the report, spelled Zac's name with an H. I talked about that last week. Some spelled his name correctly, and at least one put an H in there. But I showed last week other examples where Zac was left unredacted with an H. But okay, and agreed that Adam or Zac could stay at her place. This arrangement was obviously being made as Alex was going to be staying with Lori. Yeah. Okay. Then Adam texted Alex and said he was coming into town the next day. This probably happened before this, and asked if he could stay with him. So I should switch the order of these. The police report reads, Adam said he wanted to back up and explain on Tuesday, July 9th. He called Alex and told him he was coming to Arizona. Adam then explained that Alex was sucked into Lori's ideas and whatever Lori tells him he believes. Adam said Alex is all about whatever Lori says. Adam said he asked Alex if he could stay with him instead of their parents' house, and Alex said he would go buy a mattress for him to sleep on in one of his bedrooms. So I suspect that that was the original plan until Lori reached out to him and was like, I need you to come stay with me. Charles and Adam have a text exchange about Adam's visit. Adam insisted on meeting with Lori and recording her. Again, he didn't do that. I already talked about that. And Charles insisted they set up a meeting with Holmes, the stake president. I'll just read this part. Your flights are booked. You should have the emails. I'm really uneasy about how she will respond, not only to you, but to me. And Brandon. I'll pick up JJ and take him to school at 8 a.m. Thursday. She'll be there. Friday, the same. She will be highly suspicious about recording. And then he kind of offers this as like a concession. If you can bring a second device and put your phone on the counter or turn it off, it might help. Just a brother talking to his sister. I personally feel she's too far gone. It is going to take us going to... this was redacted, or she won't ever stop. Let me see if I can pull this up. Yeah, it is going to take us going to Holmes, or she won't ever stop. She's hurting too many families. Mine is gone, Adam. I just want to save others from the same fate. I still love her more than life, but I think that was supposed to be Lori, we knew, is gone. I fear forever. Okay, let me see if there's anything else here. Yeah, just more of the same. Yeah, so in the original screenshot I found, Holmes was redacted, but then I found one where it was left unredacted, so I need to update the timeline. Okay. All right, the 10th. Just like the day before, there are quite a few events with timestamps, so I put them all into one. 10:25 a.m. Lori texts Melani Boudreau. I think so, but I think they are moving their plans to tomorrow since they will still try to get rid of you. I think she was telling her that just to keep Melani on the same page. You know, almost like we're friends because we have a common enemy sort of thing. All right, Melani, I wish there was a way to somehow be at the wedding, but I know this is more important. Lori, very infantilizing. I know, baby. I'm so sorry. This is important to your mission, even though I know it's hard to just sit there. And she used those heart emojis. 3:58 p.m. Lori texts Summer that she was on her way to Alex's house. 7:18, Lori sends Melani an SMS message informing her that Alex was there and that Charles said he would be coming over in the morning. So we know that by 7:18, Alex was already at her house. I should add, I should actually add that to the one before. This is the same day. Chad called Lori twice for extended conversations. So they talked from 9:50 to 12:19. So like Lori texted Melani while she was talking to Chad. And that was Chad calling Lori. And then Chad called Lori again at 3:50 and they talked to 4:20. So while they were talking, Lori texted Summer to let her know she was on her way to Alex's house. Okay. Also, according to Melanie Gibb, Lori tells her to leave in the morning because Charles is going to kill her. Now, one of the things that I've noted that is a big problem in Melanie Gibb's claims is that she claims that she didn't find out that Charles had been killed until 4 days after he was killed. So that would have been July 15th. But she also, talks out of the other side of her mouth and said that Lori told her to leave in the morning. So this was the morning of the 10th, ever so casually, because Charles is going to kill her. So if Lori's a close friend, even if she weren't a close friend, like what friend wouldn't call her friend, reach out to make sure she was okay? So it doesn't pass muster. Okay. All right. Also, according to Melani, Adam, Brandon, Zac, and Barry Cox all wanted to kill Lori for her supposed $3 million life insurance policy. And then, according to Colby, Adam, Brandon, and Summer's lover, Edgar, wanted to kill her. So, I mean, these claims are, and that's very on brand for Lori. She even says something to the detectives who are trying to do a welfare check on her son. She's talking about, her brother Adam wanting to kill her. So, in her mind, it's like she is just always the victim, and very, very paranoid. Okay. Also on the 10th, Adam reportedly called Alex about staying with him, but Alex doesn't answer. This is when he actually arrived in Phoenix, but Alex didn't answer any of his calls or call him back. So he and Zac stayed with his parents instead. But this is kind of weird, and you can check this out. I want to kind of move things along, but according to Summer, she and her family left early morning of the 11th, the day Charles was shot. They left for New York and had arranged ahead of time for Zac to be watching their dog and house sitting. And she said they were in charge of her house. So then why would Adam and Zac have stayed with Barry and Janice? Like, what about the dog? What about the house? So, in true Cox fashion, like all of these different Cox family member stories, they just don't mesh. They don't line up. Okay. This is bizarre. This one I'm actually going to open up because I just found this probably about a month ago, and I was like, how did I miss this before? Summer stated that Adam came into town on Wednesday, July 10th. Weeks before this, Summer had arranged for Adam's son, Zac, to stay at her house while she was in New York. Adam came over to her house with Zac, and she and Adam ate and played a card game together. So Adam's in town ostensibly to help Charles. He decides he's going to meet up with family members, and they just sit down and play a card game together. Summer says she didn't say a word about her concerns regarding, the report notes that Summer did not say a word about her concerns regarding Lori's safety. Summer asked Adam why he came to Arizona, and she stated that he was very awkward with his answer. Summer added that Adam was not himself, and this was very concerning. She never mentioned anything about Charles coming to town on the same day. Summer felt that something was up, but she did not know what. So she did know what. But I'm just picturing them they're both wondering what's going on. They're both thinking about their plans, and then they're like, do you have a 9 of spades? No, go fish. It's absolutely bizarre. Okay. Charles arranges to come to Arizona and also arranges travel for Adam using his frequent flyer miles. That's pretty well established. Lori reserved him a room at the True by Hilton. We've already talked about that. Okay. I don't remember if the frequent flyer detail has been confirmed in the FOIA docs. I'll have to double check that. That detail was shared with me. Well, here I said last year, but it was in 2020 from a confidential source. Okay, so July 10th, we already know this. Charles flies from Houston to Phoenix and planned to look at apartments the next day in Chandler. That information came from Charles' friend and landlord. We're still on the 10th. Lori, Alex, and Melani have lunch together. This was also new for me. And then Lori and Alex go to Summer's house. So this is just all so sketch. Here Summer had already said the day before, I'll kill him myself if that's the case. And she and Janice were giving updates to Lori about Adam and Zac. And then you see that Lori, Alex, and Melani all have lunch together, and then Lori and Alex go to Summer's house. But of course, Summer also, tries to distance herself from all of this. But this I need to bring receipts on, since I don't think that this has been covered anywhere. But it says, this is, let's see. All right, the following day, Lori would have lunch with Alex and Melani. The following day from the 9th, which I deduced to be the 10th, Lori and Alex would then go over to Summer's house, Lori's sister. Text messages between Lori and Summer indicated that Summer knew of the intervention and was providing information to Lori about Adam once he arrived in Phoenix. In reviewing Lori's cellular phone records, she had contact with only Chad, Phoebe. Now, I've talked about this before, but I didn't have the screenshot up. But I've talked about how, both Chandler and Gilbert go to great lengths to protect Melani Gibb throughout these FOIA docs. She's the only one where they will frequently refer to her only by her last name, but then redact the last name. And I think that's by design, so you can't just search for her name. But then when I saw this, I was like, seriously? You're mentioning, you're reading off everyone's real names, even including Charles, but then you refer to Melani as Phoebe, so anyway, okay. They could just be it was the Phoebe, burner phone. Who knows? But she had contact with only Chad, Phoebe, Melani, that's Melani Boudreaux, Charles, Summer, and Alex during the hours leading up to and following the discovery of the intervention. Okay. All right. Lori also texted Melani and told her to cancel her trip. Oh, that I already covered. So I can move those. Okay, if we already covered that. Oh, also, so Brandon Boudreaux's friend, Jess, who was interviewed by Hidden True Crime, said in an interview that Melani was out of town that Saturday. So this would have been the Saturday after Charles was shot. So that was the 13th. So I wonder if she did eventually go to her friend's wedding. I'll pull that up.
The day that Charles died, Zac kind of talked about it in his interview. Nobody knew. They didn't tell anybody. That was I think it was a Thursday. And that Saturday, Melani was out of town. My family was just swimming. And Brandon, Melani was moving out. Brandon was just packing. And then he gets a call that Charles has been shot. And he calls my husband. My husband just runs. He's just like, Charles is dead. And I asked him who shot Charles, and he said Alex. And I was like, that wasn't self-defense. And he's like, nobody thinks it's self-defense. Nobody thought it was right away. Yeah, everybody knew that it wasn't self-defense.
Okay. Okay, also on the 10th, Charles finally told the scammer he was moving on and would go back to the LDS Planet dating site. So it said on July 10th, Charles told, obviously they redacted the Gmail address, he was moving on and going back to the LDS Planet dating site. He did not send another message. And then that user sent him messages on July 13th and July 17th. That evening, Charles went on a date with Nancy Joe shortly after arriving in Arizona. This has been pretty well established. Also that evening, Charles visited the National Life Group website at 6:49. This would be the last browsing artifacts on his phone prior to his death. The last browsing artifacts prior to Charles Vallow's death were on July 11th, 2019, ending at 1:49. And that was 6:49 p.m. Arizona time. They were for National Life Group. So I don't know if, because I think, I think there was another reference. No, okay. All right. There was another life insurance company that we talked about this last week. It indicated that that he appeared to have an account there. So, okay, all right, that brings us up to July 11th, and that's where we will pick up next week. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the questions. Also, as I find different things, I drop them on the community tab of the YouTube channel. So, the only way you're going to get notifications is if you click the notification bell. But some of the interactions, some of the comments have been really informative. So thank you for those of you who contribute. But okay, until next week, have a great night.